there. But right now on your screen, the mugshot for the suspected shooter, 17-year-old Demetrius Porgachis, believed to have used his father's shotgun and .38 revolver to kill at least 10 people, or now we have confirmed 10 people, and injure 10 others, including an officer who engaged with him, and they're saying potentially saved the lives of so many others.
Yes, and we should also say that right now he is in the Santa Fe Police Department, the suspect. And the other key point I thought was the fact that they're looking at two other people, not just one other person of interest, but two people of interest. One, because of the way they reacted to what they were seeing. And they didn't specify why the other person is being questioned, but they want to try to find out as much as possible about what happened this morning, what these people may have known, if there was any kind of red flags. The governor said there were no obvious red flags. We talked about what we saw on Facebook, but he didn't have a criminal record. You know, he seemed to be active in the community somewhat, on the football team, on the dance team, the Greek community. We did see some disturbing things on his Facebook, and the fact that he was really interested in guns. But beyond that, no obvious red flags that anybody was tipped off about.
Right, nothing that had been officially reported or such at all that we are aware of. But of course, you know, more information with every moment that passes by today is going to be coming in. And there are so many different moving parts right now to this investigation that we know of. Law enforcement at the home of the suspected gunman there in Alvin, in a neighborhood there, at the home that he shared with both of his parents, that we know at least, preparing to serve two search warrants, two federal search warrants that we know of. And we know that they're looking at two different residences as well too. We had not heard that yet. We had only heard about one location, and then also a car with explosives, possibly, and a home with explosives that Lynn had detailed there. We were talking about a CO2 bomb and a Molotov cocktail device, and these are the known explosives that we have heard about up until this point.
Which is why they're being so careful in serving these warrants. They don't want anybody else to get hurt. Something bad
you have
could
to
happen.
proceed with caution at this time. A lot of talk, a lot of discussion there, obviously, about the officer response. We know we have one officer, Officer Barnes, who has undergone surgery and being treated for a shot to his arm. And in hearing from, I believe it was the DPS colonel there, he talked about, you know, it was that engagement that likely made a difference.
Yes, okay, so they're heroes. One of probably many heroes today.
Yes.
Let's go back to Melissa Correa, just a few miles from the school where we still have a lot of law enforcement cars. And has anything changed from your vantage point, Melissa?
Yeah, we've seen, you know, almost a changing of the guard, Ron. But while I have you and me, a quick impromptu back and forth with you guys, because I was listening to that press conference, but of course I'm out here with traffic moving past me here in Galveston County, and I heard Governor Abbott and law enforcement talk a little bit about the explosives in the homes and in a vehicle. Did you all gather any more information, like if he deciphered between the properties that are in question? Because David Gonzalez is at a home in Brazoria County. I'm near this home that's in Galveston County, but to my knowledge, I didn't hear authorities kind of separate the scenes. Did you all?
No, they didn't get specific with those scenes, Melissa. They did not get specific. But they are being very careful.
And so that's what I wanted to just make sure. Exactly, and that's why I wanted to make sure, because before we proceeded, Ron, because they're talking about explosives being possibly in a home and a vehicle, and they did not, to my knowledge, identify where that vehicle is located. And again, this push for the community here in Galveston County and near that home in Brazoria County to be kind of aware of what's going on. If they see anything suspicious, the FBI is now taking to Twitter and Facebook, asking people to call a 1-800 number. number. Let me show you what's happening out here. I had mentioned a sort of changing of the guard. We've seen a lot of outside police agencies outside of Galveston County coming in and setting up shop. Most recently, Harris County Sheriff's deputies and Pearland Police. In fact, Pearland is the one who rolled up a communications mobile unit maybe about 15 minutes or so ago while the press conference was still happening. At last check, you know, for the better part of this afternoon, we've been waiting on authorities to receive a federal search warrant that would allow them to enter this trailer home here in Galveston County that's on a piece of property it's a trailer home right next to a traditional home. And authorities have been here since, I don't know, maybe about 10 this morning. They've really closed down Highway 6 and set up shop. And so this is what we're seeing. For the most part, traffic has died down. I think over the course of the last few hours, people have gotten the hint that they are in it for the long haul. Len Cannon and web journalist for us, Matt Kaiser, are sharing on social media all of just the vehicles and the capability and the technology and resources that is being driven in from all across Texas to handle this investigation. We just heard in this press conference how extensive the evidence gathering is going to be, how careful law enforcement has to be because they don't know exactly what they're dealing with when they enter onto these properties. I did check again with authorities who were keeping everybody back. Listen, are we in a safe spot? We're at Thompson Road and Highway 6. They said, yes, you are. And I said, to your knowledge, are you all going to be asking people to vacate their homes, to leave when that search warrant is activated and you all can go on the property? And law enforcement are saying at this point they believe everyone is in a safe position. But again, we're just waiting. And it's literally, Ron and me, you know, my ears perk up a little bit because we'll see just a caravan of DPS troopers swing by and then Pearland Police swing by, and they're all in a hurry to get to this property. And then now we're sitting and waiting. And for all I know, they could be serving that warrant. They really could. You can see the tree line is thick and it is high. This trailer home is set back on the property, according to what we saw through Google Images. Neighbors telling us they can't even see much because of the debris and the junk and the brush that's on the property. So we're only showing you what we can see from Highway 6, and it's just more and more law enforcement making their way here. Earlier in the day, it was a literal back and forth. We're talking 50, 60, 70 miles per hour, it seemed like, of law enforcement whizzing from that trailer home 3 miles away down Highway 6 to Santa Fe High School. And this is where we're at. And I think it's gonna take one of those press conferences later this afternoon, Ron and Mia, for us to really learn, one, what they found on that property, two, why they wanted to search it, and three, where we go from here. But this is one of at least 3 locations, all linked to that investigation, the murder of those students there at Santa Fe High School this morning. 3 locations, and we're in front of one of them. Guys?
All right, thank you so much, Melissa Correa. Another one of the locations of interest right now is at UTMB, and we just got a tweet from Police Chief Art Acevedo of Houston saying retired HPD SPO John Barnes, 49, was sworn in May 1995 and retired in January 2018. He began his career at Southwest Patrol and began working in investigations in 2005. John is known for his tireless work in Houston Metro Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, and he is in critical condition right now.
Right, at UTMB Hospital. He was being treated there, underwent surgery for a shot to his arm. And in an earlier tweet, Art Acevedo had mentioned just leaving UTMB Health Galveston on behalf of at Santa Fe ISD police officer John Barnes' family. Thank you for your prayers. John is hanging in there, and the family is very hopeful. They hope to have additional information released shortly. And as we were hearing from that briefing that Governor Greg Abbott led, and then we heard from other officials, including a deputy colonel there with Texas DPS, he talked about these officers, and he didn't list anyone by name, but we can only assume that he was talking about Officer Barnes because he had mentioned the one officer, the first officer to engage him, was in fact in critical condition.
Yes.
And so we can assume that he was talking about Officer Barnes, but really the picture that he painted there was him being a hero because he engaged him. They say when you have these situations, you have to immediately engage the suspect to lower the risk of death and injury to others.
And that's what the colonel with the DPS said, that when you have situations like this, the security on guard, the two ISD officers, he said what they did was the right thing and they saved so many lives.
Yeah. We have Tiffany Craig now standing by. Tiffany has been taking information. We know there's so much information out there, Tiff. You've been looking at all of this very closely and verifying it for us.
Yes, because the information's coming from every possible angle. So we have broken it down like this, and we want to show you some of the new information that we have under our verified column. And we're also going to talk about some stuff that's false that you're probably seeing on social media. The first one you probably just heard, this suspect has now been charged. I'm not going to say his name again, but he has been charged, and that is some new information that we have. Something else that is new, this came from Governor Abbott. There have been 10 people killed. That includes 1 teacher, 9 students. Also 10 wounded at the hospital, some still critical, including a police officer with Santa Fe ISD. Another piece of information we can verify for you is during the investigation, multiple explosives have been found by officers. One other thing, a shotgun and a .38 revolver were the weapons officers are saying were used in this shooting. Now for this middle section, this is an area where this is information that we've heard, but we haven't been able to 100% verify it yet. The first one is a report that a teacher pulled a fire alarm. According to an interview that we did this morning with a student, he said that his teacher ran out and pulled that fire alarm to let the rest of the school know what was going on because the art room is separated from much of the school, and that was the way to alert everybody. Again, we're waiting for full confirmation from the school, but that information came from a student this morning. Another report is that the art class itself was targeted. If this information is in fact accurate about the fire alarm, it would make sense that perhaps the art class was targeted, but we cannot put that in the verified column just yet because we don't have official confirmation on this. 2 more things to mention that go in the false column. Social media has been a buzz today with this. There are a couple of things to mention in here. The first one is this information that there were 18 school shootings in 2018. This number 18 is not mass shootings like what you're seeing today here in Santa Fe. These include smaller incidents that might be around the school or even suicides, and all of those numbers get pulled together and they're presented in a way like this that instills fear in some people. So this is a false piece of information, and we want to let you know that. And one other thing that just came about, there are a lot of reports saying that an AR-15 was used. According to officials here in Santa Fe, an AR-15 was not used in this school shooting. So again, we have broken it down into sections. This is what's false, what we know is false. These are reports that we know about, but we can't say with 100% certainty. And what you see over here, we know these are true, and we're passing them all along to you, guys.
All right, Tiffany Craig, thank you so much for breaking it down. We know there is so much to keep up here with what's taken place in Santa Fe. Thank you.
And we're getting more information as the day progresses. Janelle Beluda is live at Clear Lake Hospital where some of those patients are. And I believe one of them was in critical condition earlier today, Janelle?
That's right, Ron. One of them is in critical, and we still have another patient here in fair condition. Now, we're told that 8 patients came here total. 6 of them, the good news, 6 of them have since gone home. They have non-life-threatening injuries, and so they are at home. They are recovering. We had a chance to talk to a couple of them. One girl, she says she was grazed in the back. She said that she was in the room when they came in. She said it was all very scary. She obviously didn't want to go on camera. She's happy to be okay. Her mom was here with her. Now, this place has also served as sort of like a reunification point for a lot of these victims and their parents. We had one dad just came here just to meet with his son. The son came here with a friend who was shot. The dad, was the first time they saw each other. Obviously a very emotional moment right there. He spoke to us. He says he's just driving here was just obviously very emotional for him. He said he almost couldn't drive, but he's so happy to see his son, to finally see him again. One of the heartbreaking things we've seen are parents coming here looking for their kids and not finding them, and then going to another hospital hoping to find them there. So it's been, a very emotional day. It's kind of quieted down since we've been here, since we got that last update from the hospital. They say they still do have those 2 patients. One of them is fair, one of them is critical. They do not expect them to be released overnight. They wouldn't go into any extent on their injuries. They said all of them were students and all of them suffered gunshot wounds. The hospital did say they actually just did a training like this a couple of weeks ago, and that because of that, everything went very smoothly this morning. They're very happy with the way everything went. Right now, they're offering counselors to those patients and their families, just hoping to help everyone get through this difficult time. But we'll stay out here and bring you guys an update as soon as it becomes available.
Much in El Boluda, we're all praying for those victims and those doctors and nurses so they can save those lives. All right, thank you so much. We also have a number of vigils that have been planned in the wake of all this. Let's give you a list of some of those. In Santa Fe, a vigil has been scheduled for 6 o'clock tonight at the Texas First Bank at 12,402 Highway 6 in Santa Fe.
In League City, the Bay Harbor United Methodist Church will host a non-denominational prayer vigil this evening from 6 to 9 p.m. Come and go event. They are welcoming everyone there.
In Clear Lake, please join Ecclesia Clear Lake in prayer and lament for the violence that occurred in Santa Fe today. We will gather tonight at 6:30 for a prayer vigil in response to the Santa Fe High School shooting.
Right, and then one more, we know in Conroe, they are planning their MoCo students, Montgomery County students, Demand Action will hold a vigil for Santa Fe High School tomorrow, 5 p.m. That's on Sawdust Road at I-45. So just a number of vigils there, people wanting to gather and pray for the victims and their loved ones as well. Arlen Cannon is live outside Santa Fe High School. He was there for Governor Abbott's briefing and joins us once again. Len?
Mia, Ron, standing across the street from Santa Fe High School. There are 1,400 students who attend here. They are only 2 weeks away from the end of school, May 31st. Think about that, 2 weeks. The first 911 call came at 7:32 this morning. A rush of officers went in 8 minutes later. We have some of the 911 calls. Take a listen.
Santa Fe ISD had shot fired. Call disconnected. Have another caller saying people are getting shot.
We also need the flight for an officer down.
10-4, we got him.
60704, we're coming out the front doors. West Center EPA. He's actually shooting. He's in the art room. We got shots fired right now, guys.
Subject is in custody, and at least one third is in custody. And at the time, he's advising he just put IEDs, throw them in a room. We might have eyes on a site bomb.
All units. This is just advising there's possibly pipe bomb, pressure cooker bomb somewhere in this area.
Check the closet. That's where I have 9 students and 1 teacher hiding.
So you can hear the urgency and the panic with the flurry of 911 calls when the first report of shots being fired at 7:32 this morning. As you can imagine, Tiffany Craig mentioned this, social media has just lit up over what has happened here. We've got some Snapchat video. Let's show it to you right now. It shows students both running and walking and leaving in a field, and you can hear sirens in the background as students begin to leave. Now at this point, they probably aren't even sure what exactly is happening. We've heard students say they heard a fire alarm go off. Some heard what they thought was an explosion. Others heard gunshots. Some hearing 7, 10, even 20 gunshots. But at this point, they are exiting the building, trying to get away, and this is where investigators and police go in and trying to lock down the building and figure out who's responsible. We know that at about 10:05, the gunman, the suspected gunman, who is a student here, was finally captured, turned himself in. We also have sound right now from a student who was hiding when all this was happening. And as you can imagine, this is quite something. Take a listen.
It was just so chaotic. Everybody just started running wherever they could go. As soon as we heard the sirens, we tried to follow the siren, or they tried to follow the sirens. I just ran to the forest because that's where I didn't think nobody could find me there.
So there you have a student who was hiding at the time, obviously very upset. There are a lot of destroyed lives here today, folks. Been 10 people who lost their lives, 10 people were wounded, and think about the families behind and what they must be going through to send your kid to school, and then moments later you find out that they're no longer with you. It's very tragic, it is very sad. The governor striking the right tone this afternoon, saying, we got to stop praying, we got to take action. We're going to try and do something about this. We hope to talk to either the governor or the lieutenant governor a little bit later. Coming up at about 3 o'clock in just a few minutes, we hope to get another briefing from investigators about where things stand right now. Mia?
So much to even process at this time. Lynn Cannon there outside Santa Fe High School. Shock, disbelief, frustration, anger. Just a roller coaster of emotions for our entire community today in the wake of the shooting.
Everyone from the students to the teachers to the parents, the first responders. We've heard the doctors come to tears over what their task is today and tonight and in the coming days.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Len. Len Cannon live outside Santa Fe High School, where so many officers are still tonight.
Yeah, and there are also several officers positioned at a neighborhood in Alvin, just a few miles away from the school, about 3 miles. That's where David Gonzalez is, following the activity outside the suspected shooter's home. David?
Me and Ron, right now things are sort of on a standstill right now. Everything that is taking place is actually taking place about a quarter mile down the street at the suspected shooter's home here. We talked to a few neighbors out here, and they do recognize the name of the shooter, and they say that he either lives or lived in the home down the street here on County Road 136A. According to the neighbors that I've spoken to out here, they say that this kid was like any other kid in their neighborhood. They watched him grow up. They watched him grow up with the other kids in this neighborhood. They would see him during Halloween going trick-or-treating, riding his bike up and down the road. As of right now, the community is in a sense of disbelief as to what is taking place out here. From the neighbors that we've spoken to, they say that the Greek family lives on County Road 136A, and that's where authorities have been gathered for the last maybe 2.5 hours since we've been here. We've seen deputies from the Brazoria County Sheriff's Office. We've also seen state troopers. Hey, I think we're getting some new information, so let's go back to Mia and Ron right now.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, another news conference from UTMB.
So the latest update is we received 4 patients. The original 3 that we talked about this morning, and then about 11:30, a 15-year-old male came to our emergency room at League City. He was treated and released. The first patient that we received today in our emergency room at League City that was later transferred to Galveston campus remains in the OR. She's the female, mid-50s, with a gunshot wound to her leg. The police officer from Santa Fe Independent School District is still in the operating room. We think that that case may wrap up soon, but he still remains in the operating room. The pediatric patient is still hospitalized in our pediatric unit. Yep.
And could you discuss the officer's condition in any more depth, and are you releasing his name? It's been released elsewhere.
Yeah. We just talked to his wife. She said that we could confirm that John is here. That was okay with her.
Barnes.
Yes, John Barnes. He is in critical condition. He remains in critical condition. His main injury was to his arm and an artery in his arm, and I think the bone in that arm. So that is what's being addressed in the OR.
Are his injuries considered life-threatening at this point? So, you know, as the situation is still fluid, so the update currently is that he suffered a gunshot wound to the elbow. So the bone and the blood vessel on this side was where he suffered a significant injury. the physicians, our surgeons have already done the repair of the blood vessel, and the blood flow is doing very well. Currently, we are working on fixing the injury to the elbow, and his vital signs are stable. You know, as a critical care physician, you want to see the organs are working well, and he's making urine. So I was talking to David earlier. So those are good signs at this point. So he still remains in the OR, and we are expecting that they will be able to complete the work on the injury to his bone in the next couple of hours.
How long, I was going to say, how long is the surgical process for him?
He went into the OR about 9:20 or so, and is still there. I haven't calculated the hours, but you know, it's delicate work when you're working on vascular structures and then repairing the bone structures. So it's taken that amount of time to take care of that.
Can you speak to the type of care the woman in her mid-50s is receiving?
So the woman in mid-50 had a fracture of her leg bone, and they have already completed the repair, and she should be coming out of the OR shortly.
And the pediatric patient, please?
Pediatric patient had a minimal injury to the muscle of the leg and is stable.
And when you said you had a fractured leg bone, that was from?
The gunshot wound.
Is that upper leg or lower leg?
Upper leg.
And on Mr. Barnes, is there any sense to how much blood he had actually lost, how much you ever know?
No, we don't have that information at present.
The pediatric minimal injury to the muscle, does that mean it was more like a graze, or did a bullet actually, do we know?
I haven't confirmed that yet.
Oh. And you were talking about the 15-year-old male treated and released at the League City facility. Was he struck as well, but it was a superficial wound?
As I understand it, he did not have a gunshot wound, but he was injured somehow in the incident, but he was treated and released.
Are you expecting that the other minor who has been here for a while will be able to be treated and released soon?
Well, he's been admitted to the hospital, so I expect that he will at least spend the night, but further than that, I do not know.
And his injuries were gunshot?
Yes.
Back to Officer Barnes, was the biggest threat when he arrived here bleeding out? What was the biggest thing your medical team was concerned about when he arrived here?
So that was the biggest threat, that he was bleeding out and his blood pressure was very low. So the immediate issue was to resuscitate him, give him enough blood product to get his blood pressure in, and take him straight to the OR, and that's what our team did.
You may have heard about the Stop the Bleed campaign that the American College of Surgeons is putting on for these types of incidents, so that the immediate action that you take to respond is to stop the bleeding. So that's what was done at the scene. They brought him here, and they've continued to do that work.
Can you speak more to the work that was done at the scene?
I don't know.
In terms of what you saw when he got here, what people had done to help?
He came in with by life flight, and he had gotten the critical care that they deliver on the scene.
At some point, you said he had to be resuscitated. I had some information that he may have stopped breathing at one point.
His breathing was being assisted by life flight when they brought him in.
But he was in pretty bad shape.
That's my understanding.
That's correct.
Medically speaking, what's probably the greatest challenge for him at this point?
So the greatest challenge for him is to understand how much he bled out at the scene and whether there is a significant reduction in blood flow to the brain. So we will address the injuries, but to understand how he's going to do is dependent upon what happened at the scene before he came to us.
When you say how he's going to do, how close he's going to be back to normal?
It's too early to say.
But explain that a little bit more if you could, because when you're losing blood, as you said, it can't get to other parts of the body, it can't get to the brain. Tell me what consequences that could have, short-term, long-term?
I think it's too early for me to comment on that. Our immediate response is to resuscitate him. His prognosis and what recovery is he going to have, I think we got to, that's why we are giving you update every 2 hours, so we'll give you guys update how things are going.
It's really too early. You're just trying to treat the immediate
His family obviously hasn't been able to see him. At what point do you think that may be possible, best case scenario?
We can't predict that. Whenever he comes out of the OR, he probably will go to our surgical intensive care unit. Once they get him settled in there, I'm sure that they will do everything that they can to let at least his wife in to see him. But, you know, that's speculation about how fast that would happen or when it would happen.
Sure. Can you speak to the type of support?
We're going to have to just one more question because these guys have to get back, and we'll give you, this will be the last briefing of this sort, but you're going to call us for more information.
Can you speak to the type of support that the family is receiving right now?
They're surrounded by their loved ones when we saw them upstairs, and then several of John's co-workers and former co-workers have surrounded them with support also.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your patience.
Thank you.
Can I get your names there?
Yes, so my name is Gulshan Sharma, Gulshan, last name Sharma, Sharma. I'm the Chief Medical Officer for the health system.
David Marshall, David Marshall, and I'm the Chief Nursing Officer for the health system.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we've been listening to a live update from UTMB on the patients that are still there from this morning's mass shooting at Santa Fe High School. Okay, now that's the Spanish translation there.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of interesting information about the officer who was severely wounded and his progress in the operating room.
Yes, and he's been in the operating room for hours now. He started in surgery at 9:20. When you think about it, look at the clock. That's nearly 6 hours later. They said that he was brought to the hospital in rather bad shape, and what they're looking at, what they've been dealing with in surgery, is an injury to his arm, and more specifically a blood vessel and the bone there. A gunshot caused severe injury to the bone around his elbow and a major blood vessel there at his elbow. The chief medical officer there and chief nursing officer at UTMB letting us know that that blood vessel has been repaired. The officer appears to be doing well under the circumstances. Now the focus, of course, is on the bone there, but the big concern that they have had with the officer since the onset of this was his blood pressure and it being extremely low, and then worries about him bleeding out. That has been cared for at this point. Now they are addressing the actual injury. And what I found of interest here is that he should be done in the operating room within the next couple of hours. So this is a very serious injury that they're dealing with and trying to mend there.
Yeah, they were saying that the vital signs are stable, and that's always a good sign. And again, this is Officer John Barnes, who was a former HPD officer, 49-year-old, who just left the HPD this year, and he was an officer with Santa Fe ISD, already being called a hero from the DPS official that we heard from earlier this morning.
Because he engaged the suspect. He was the first officer to engage the suspect, and likely in doing so helped lower the death there and the injury that were sustained by so many. There were also other patients being treated there at UTMB. They received a total of 4. One of those patients, though, however, was being treated at another facility, a 15-year-old male. No gunshot injury there that they were dealing with, but he has since been treated and released. Another teenager, quite possibly. We hear pediatric patient, so we assume that's a student. Minimal injury to muscles there. And then a female in her mid-50s with a gunshot wound to the leg, a fracture of the leg bone, and she should come out of surgery shortly.
So some promising news there from doctors at UTMB. Let's go to Jason Miles. He's live at the Santa Fe ISD headquarters. Jason, what are they saying out there this evening?
Yeah, I'm told this is the administration building. We're near the Alamo Gym, which was the initial kind of reunion site for parents and students from Santa Fe High School. Right now, this is pretty much just a staging area for area law enforcement who came to assist Santa Fe. You can look around this parking lot and see Texas Highway Patrol. You see Santa Fe Police, Fort Bend, Houston, all kinds of law enforcement agencies represented here. The American Red Cross here as well, because at some point earlier, teachers started showing up, and I'm told this is where they were basically briefed by law enforcement asking teachers questions about what happened here today, any of what their knowledge may have been. For the most part, parents have pretty much left this location, some of them in tears earlier because they found out their students, their loved ones, were indeed among those injured. Earlier today, I introduced you to a family who had a loved one they couldn't get in touch with. Come to find out, that young lady was indeed shot. We have a photo of her. Her name is Sarah Salazar. She's a 10th grader at Santa Fe High School. I'm told she was in the art class or near the art class when shots started ringing out. According to her sister, who just texted me not long ago, Sarah was shot by shotgun pellets, so a shotgun blast. She suffered injuries to her neck, her shoulder, and her thigh, but fortunately, she is expected to survive and recover. She is currently at Clear Lake Medical Center. That's where she was taken. Again, a 10th grader who her parents, her sisters, her other siblings frantically tried to get in touch with her after the shooting, and finally got some resolution this afternoon, albeit bad news, but at least she will survive. Here's a little bit of what her mother told us before she found out what happened.
We're just waiting to see, what they're going to tell us. We haven't heard or seen her. We haven't talked to her. She's not answering her cell phone. So we're just keeping her in our prayers, hoping she's okay.
Can you imagine what she was going through, not knowing what happened to her daughter, texting her, calling her, not getting any response via text or phone call? But again, Sarah Salazar, the student you saw there, a 10th grader who was in the art class when this shooting started happening, is now being treated for at least 3 wounds, and things at least look promising for her after what will possibly be a long-term recovery, guys.
And your heart really has to go out to Mrs. Salazar, not knowing what was going on with her daughter. At least she's getting some good news. I mean, she's in the hospital, but she's going to be okay. All right, thank you so much. Yeah. Jason Miles, live in Santa Fe ISD Administration Building.
So we have 10 dead and 10 injured that we know of. We had heard from the head of UTMB and also the nursing director at UTMB just a short time ago, giving us an update on the injured being treated there. So we've been out at the hospital, we've been there at the district headquarters, but the live picture that you're looking at is in Alvin, just outside this neighborhood, the neighborhood of the suspected gunman. That's where the bulk of the activity is right now. The focus of this investigation, the suspected gunman's home. There could possibly be explosives there, and at this point we're not sure exactly what else. We have authorities who are proceeding with caution. We know that there were some other explosive devices already that police have confirmed, talking about a CO2 canister, a Molotov cocktail, and they're talking about these explosive devices not just being at a residence but also inside a car too.
Inside a car, and they've got warrants for the home and the car, but they have to proceed, as you said, with caution. They've been out here for several hours, and they'll probably be out there for more hours, especially if they finally get in and they have to meticulously look for evidence, be that just a physical evidence or something in computers. It's going to be such a widespread investigation, and as the governor said and others, this is a robust reaction to what happened this morning.
Gathering evidence. It's going to take, if not hours, quite possibly days even, for this process to play itself out and for them to get everything that they need. Our Melissa Correa has been in the area there following all of the activity. Mel, circling back around to you now.
Hey there, Mia. Listen, we're starting to see a little bit more activity as far as vehicles coming through. Let me get out of the way. Again, if you've been with us throughout this entire tragedy today, you know that one of 3 locations is just up ahead of us on Highway 6 near Thompson Road, where authorities are going to use the power of a federal search warrant, we're told, to search a property that has a traditional home in the ground and a mobile home on it, where it's suspected that explosive devices may be. We're starting to see a more organized setup, and when I mean that is, you know, we're starting to see command posts come through, more DPS troopers come through, and things like that. But I've got to tell you, in the break that we've had while doctors at UTMB were discussing everything that's going on there, put the maps to the test, and David Gonzalez is out at the scene of the third location, which is another home where it's believed that the suspected shooter lived. In order to get to David's location in Brazoria County, you can take this stretch of Highway 6 in Galveston County, which is why we're likely seeing just so much back and forth of law enforcement. All three of these locations are not incredibly far from the other. In fact, it may do us some good to show our viewers just kind of the general vicinity. If we don't have that map yet, we definitely have the addresses to show folks just how close subjectively all three of these locations are. But again, authorities have already confirmed that they have found explosives inside and outside of the high school, and now it's just a matter of getting confirmation as to if this location on Highway 6 does in fact have explosive devices either somewhere on the property or inside the home. Our other colleagues are closer to the campus, but I will say, about a half hour ago, a sophomore from Santa Fe High School came walking down Highway 6 with some water to offer the media and to offer DPS troopers who have been working this corner since about 10 this morning. She came and offered us some water. She spoke to us for just a tad. Her name is Madison, and she said that she did not hear the explosion that her neighbors heard just before 7 this morning. At least one neighbor is saying he heard an explosion, a legit boom coming from the direction of that house, and he believed it to be an explosion but didn't see any fire or anything like that. Madison said she was already at school when that happened. I asked her, how did the morning play out? Are you okay? Are your friends okay? She said she was not near the part of the campus that was under gunfire, and that immediately, almost immediately, she and her class were escorted by law enforcement, not only out of Santa Fe High School, but across the street. So they crossed Highway 6 into maybe some sort of local business or car wash. She couldn't quite remember where she was just a few hours ago. And I think that speaks a little to just the trauma and everything that these kids are now having to process. Is she couldn't tell me where exactly she evacuated to as she was essentially running for her life out of Santa Fe High School. Madison lives maybe 400, 500 yards from this home that's now being excuse me, I'm sorry, I took a phone call, that's now being swept by investigators. She said she had never seen Demetrius, the 17-year-old, there. She didn't know that he lived in the area. So we're not yet sure how this property is connected to all of the others. We just know, guys, that there's a possibility of explosive devices being about 3 miles from the high school in that trailer home. This day seems endless. Every time there are updates, the situation seems to be getting worse. The death toll seems to be rising every time there's more and more information. And so we're all waiting out here, state troopers as well. We've all kind of rallied. I'll tell you, I'm just giving you the kind of painting the picture of what it's 90-some degrees out here. It's hot. We've all gathered the waters and drinks that we've got, the food that we have. We've got some pizzas out here, and the media and state troopers are all hunkered down here together. I think on a day when we're just so appreciative of being here, of being alive. We possibly can. We're all in this together with all eyes on that property behind us as we wait and see if authorities pull anything out from there. Guys?
Yeah.
Let's hope nothing explodes either.
Yes.
Because there is still that threat. All right, thank you so much, Melissa Correa.
Yeah. Arlen Cannon is just a few miles away from where Melissa is, outside Santa Fe High School, the scene of this morning's terrible shooting. Len?
Mia, I have now a timeline of the first phone calls that came out this morning, and they came in rapid succession in a half-hour period. Let's show it to you. First, at 7:32 this morning, that was the first 911 call when someone said that there were shots being fired, but the call was disconnected. A minute later, 7:33, another 911 call, people saying people were being shot. 3 minutes later, 7:35, report of an officer down. So 3 minutes after the first call, reports of an officer down. That presumably is John Barnes. 7:35, same time frame, countywide alert, officers rush to the scene. 7:37, Santa Fe PD requests mutual aid, suspect at this time not in custody. At 7:40, authorities finally enter the building. So look at the timeline there. It is only 8 minutes after the first call when authorities rushed inside the building. And then at 10:06, report of suspect in custody. We now know that suspect to be Demetrius Pecorchis, 17 years old, student at Santa Fe High School. He came with 2 guns, a shotgun and a .38 revolver, according to the news conference from Governor Abbott. And he gave himself up, but intended, we are told, to commit suicide. They are also talking to 2 other people of interest. Now, we don't have names on those people because it sounds like they have not been charged, but there are 2 other people of interest. As for the student charged, he faces a capital murder charge as well as aggravated assault of a police officer, that referring to Officer John Barnes, who was on campus as a security guard. You heard the doctors talking about his condition, the shot in the upper arm, and making sure that he doesn't bleed out. And so he seems to be holding on, still in critical condition, but seems to be holding on. Coming up at 4 o'clock, we hope to get an interview with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. We can ask him further about what lawmakers have in mind with these roundtable discussions the governor mentioned going forward in the future on how to deal with putting an end to these kinds of shootings. There are no easy answers. Everyone knows that. But the governor was pretty firm on saying this has got to stop. So hopefully we'll see what the lieutenant governor has to say about what lawmakers will be doing in the days and weeks ahead. Mia?
Yes, we know something has to be done. We have heard from everyone from the governor to the mayor of Houston saying prayers are not enough anymore. Lynn Cannon, thanks so much. We'll see you in just a bit.
Adam Bennett is our reporter who's also live near Santa Fe ISD. Adam, what can you tell us from your vantage point there?
So, Ron, we are at Tower Road and Highway 6. This is just east of the campus. We're several hundred yards back because this is about as close as they are letting us get at this point. You can still see a number of vehicles back here, some marked, many unmarked. These are all first responders, investigators from multiple different agencies. This spot where we're at right now, this is basically the main entry and exit point for a lot of these first responders. We have seen every kind of vehicle you can imagine. We've seen semi-trucks. We have seen like tour bus looking vehicles, mass casualty buses, even metro buses. A lot of times they'll bring those in to help the first responders cool off when they're spending several hours outside at different scenes like this. You heard the governor mention and several other officials that we have investigators at every different level of agency, local, state, and federal, and that's what we're seeing out here. Also, several different surrounding local jurisdictions have come here to help as well. This is a massive operation. As you heard, 10 killed, 10 wounded, explosives found inside the school, also nearby. They're of course, making sure that they are sweeping the school, sweeping the surrounding area, making sure that everything is cleared out. So this is a huge crime scene, and it's one that's going to take a lot of time. This is Highway 6, as you know, a main thoroughfare through Santa Fe and through a lot of the surrounding cities. It has been blocked off here for hours. No doubt it will continue to be blocked off for hours more. Within, I'd say, the last couple hours, we saw our most recent ambulance leaving. We saw a lot more of that activity earlier, but as you heard some of the officials saying, they've gotten the injured out. Now this is really about the investigative portion of this case. Also, at these gas stations nearby, earlier we saw a lot of kids, a lot of parents that were leaving the school, waiting around for information. A lot of them have since left and been replaced by a lot of people just curious to see what's going on. But again, Highway 6 is blocked off. This is kind of the main entry and exit point for a lot of these investigators. Dozens of them still left. No doubt they'll continue to be here for several hours more. We'll send it back to you.
They'll probably be there well into the night. All right, thank you so much, Adam Bennett, live near Santa Fe High School.
Our Jason Miles is also in Santa Fe. He is now at the district headquarters, and I believe he has a student that he is speaking with. Jason?
Yeah, throughout the day, we've seen students, we've seen parents, teachers at some point came and spoke to law enforcement here at the building behind me. Here with me now is Santa Fe High School senior Daisy Sullivan. 2 weeks from now, you'd be graduating. Not sure how this will impact that, but tell me your thoughts right now.
I'm just really hoping it's over. Like, it didn't happen. I just keep thinking that it's a dream, and then I'm gonna wake up any minute now and it's gonna be over.
Where were you this morning, and tell me what happened?
I was upstairs in my English class taking a test, and then out of nowhere, like, a fire alarm went off, and we're like, oh yay, like, we get out of the test, we don't have to take the test right now. And then as we're walking out, I grabbed my friend Cece. I was like, okay, let's go downstairs. And then as I get downstairs, my boyfriend was walking out the history hallway, and I was like, okay, well, let's go and let's wait for the fire drill to be over. And as we got out of there, we were just waiting, and the teachers kept telling us to move, like, random places. They told us to move, like, on the grass, and then, like, away from the art room. And so we're like, okay, and then we heard 2 loud pops, and I was thinking, like, maybe it was like a giant, like the giant trash can lids falling on itself. And I was like, okay, it was just a pop. And then a girl ran up to me, and she was like breathing hard, and I was like, what's wrong? And she's like, I just heard 2 gunshots. And I was like, there's no way it was gunshots, like, don't worry, just calm down, it's gonna be okay. And then we heard 4 more, or I think it was about 4 more. And I was like, okay, something's wrong. And then Mr. Vaughn, the ex-Marine teacher, he, like, ran around the corner, and he was like, yo, we all need to run. So we just took off running, and then I didn't want to lose my boyfriend, so we just grabbed each other's hands, and we ran as far as we could, as fast as we could.
And later you discovered one of your friends was injured in the shooting?
Yes, her name's Brianna. I believe that it said that she was shot in the leg, but she's okay.
Tell me your thoughts about her right now. What are you hoping?
I really hope that it didn't damage anything in her leg and she can actually walk on it later, because I know, like, there's a lot of, like, important things in your leg, and if it gets hit, there's no way you can save some of it. So I just really hope that, like, everything goes okay and everything, like, the bullet's out and all that.
I overheard another reporter asking you questions about, you know, the whole gun debate, other school shootings. You've grown up in a generation where this has become, unfortunately, rather common. It's been a long time since I was in high school. I would never have fathomed the threat of a school shooting. What is it like to be in this position? Did you ever think this could happen at Santa Fe?
I thought it could happen. Like, I was surprised but not shocked about it, because the way some of the kids are treated at the high school, like, from other kids, because other kids just don't care anymore. Like, they're like, oh, wow, look, I'm older than you. Oh, look, I'm taller than you. Oh, look, I'm bigger than you. And they still pick on people no matter what. And sometimes it just pushes people off the edge.
Do you think the young man who is suspected of shooting your fellow students this morning was a victim of bullying?
Probably, honestly. Like, I didn't know him that well. I've only seen him in the hallway, and he looked like he was a normal kid. Like, he didn't seem like he was going to do anything like this. But there's some mean people in our school that don't care, and they'll pick on anybody because they're smaller than them.
Well, Daisy, I appreciate you speaking with us, and I know your fellow classmates and schoolmates and those injured are in your thoughts and prayers. And tonight there's at least 2, maybe 3 vigils taking place for people to gather and send their thoughts as well. Guys, still an emotional scene out here, and it will be for some time here in Santa Fe.
It most certainly will. Thank you so much, Jason Miles. And yes, there are a number of vigils tonight. I'm sure the number will be growing in the next coming days. Thank you so much, Jason.
So we are hearing from Santa Fe ISD. At this time, we want to share with you a letter from the superintendent. It reads, Dear Santa Fe ISD community, today our community suffered a terrible tragedy at Santa Fe High School. Words cannot express the sorrow in our hearts for those we have lost. As I write this message, our campus remains an active crime scene with law enforcement personnel from throughout our region supporting Santa Fe ISD Police Chief Walter Braun. Like you, I have many questions about this horrific event. Those answers will come in time as this methodical, thorough investigation moves forward. You have my word that you will remain informed and involved as we cope with this event together as a family. In the meantime, the Santa Fe community will pull together to support our friends, neighbors, and loved ones who are suffering. This is a time for prayer and a time to rely on the deep bonds that have always held our special community together. They also add, we have received an outpouring of offers of support from our neighbors locally, statewide, and nationally. I want you to know that we will gladly accept every resource that will help our students on what promises to be a long road to recovery. Your children's needs, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, will be met by those who are best equipped to do so. This is only the first of many messages you will receive from me as our team seeks to keep you informed. Today is a day to begin mourning those we have lost and nursing those who are hurt. We are in this together. Sincerely, Dr. Lee Wall, Superintendent of Schools.
Trying to show some support for the community in the most painful letter that superintendent will ever write.
Ever, yes,
right,
a very difficult one.
Let's go to social media again and see what people are saying about this here in Houston and around the world. Rika Mudaraj.
Hey guys, this has been so tough. We're going on 8 hours now that this has been happening, and so many people still posting on social media, and some big names out there lending their support and their prayers. Carlos Correa, Astro star, prayers up for Santa Fe. A lot of other people, including Tillman Fertitta, you know, he's the owner of the Rockets, but he's a local as well. And he says, along with the Houston Rockets and Landry's family, I am heartbroken for these innocent lives that were lost in Santa Fe today. My roots are in Galveston, and we have many employees, friends, and family in Galveston County, which includes Santa Fe. There are just no words. A lot of people feeling like him today. Sylvester Turner, of course, has been tweeting and giving updates about this as well. He writes, for government, next step after thoughts and prayers is policy change. That is why I've been forming a commission against gun violence. Houston, Texas is unrestrained in protecting our children and their communities. A lot of people hoping to see some policy change, especially after yet another school shooting. Amira Ramon wrote this, and this is a sentiment that a lot of people have been feeling. Just the fact that these children, they are children, were so much caught off guard. These were students who were probably so excited that today is Friday and were planning what fun things to do on the weekend, making plans ahead for summer break. But when you least expect it, tragedy strikes again. It is truly heartbreaking. And again, as we've been mentioning, Santa Fe High School was supposed to let out for the summer in about 2 weeks. A lot of students there, seniors, looking forward to graduation. This high school had about 1,500 students there. A lot of people talking about how it is really a close-knit community because it's a little bit smaller, so many people hurting in that area. And of course, we've been seeing from Representative Jean Wu saying, you know, thoughts and prayers is something we've been giving for 2 decades now. It's time to try something new. We heard earlier from Senator Ted Cruz, and he joined Governor Greg Abbott and others, and they spoke briefly at a press conference, all of them talking about the evil that this gunman displayed, and also talking about the heroes that went in and helped out so many. So of course we're hearing from officials, but we're going to continue to monitor these. This is a tweet from President Donald Trump from a little bit earlier today. He also spoke about the tragedy at Santa Fe High School. But again, we're keeping an eye on this. We're checking it out, and of course we'll bring you more updates as soon as they come in. I'm going to send it back to the desk.
Yeah, a lot of words of comfort and support and condolences, but a lot of call for action too,
Yes.
Rika. All right, thank you so much.
All right, let's check back in now with Melissa Correa. She has been following the fluid situation there in both Santa Fe and the Alvin area. Mel, bring us up to speed on what you're seeing now.
Hey there, Mia. I think this is the first time for sure today that I'm smiling because I'm joined with Rizvan and Nasir. You all drove in from North Houston, and my heart is starting to fill with gladness because we're starting to see the solidarity that we know is out there for Santa Fe. Rizvan, tell me a little bit about why you had to leave your mosque in North Houston to come out here in Galveston County.
Well, we're members of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, and when we see that our society is being torn apart by violence or by any kind of hatred, then we consider it our responsibility to try and bring people together. And that's just not when the act of violence is done by a Muslim extremist. Any kind of violence done by anybody, we as Muslims consider it our responsibility to try, out of our loyalty to our country, to heal our country and promote this message of love for all and hatred for none when it's needed most.
You and Nasir came out with a sign. Photojournalist Mars Wattis is going to give our viewers a look at it. But what does this sign read?
The sign reads, and it's the motto of our community, of love for all, hatred for none. And it essentially gives the message that although we may have differences, but it should never take away from the love that we have with one another. So we may disagree with someone politically or religiously, but that doesn't stop us from having love for that individual. And when we have love for someone, then we can never do an act of violence against them. It can never fall to that point.
We have been covering this on KHOU for at least 7 hours, if I'm doing math correctly in my mind. What was it like to watch this headline slowly develop at home as you're watching it on television? And at what point, Rizvan, did you realize you had to get up and do something?
You know, the proximity of something that happens like this definitely has an effect on the heart. You know, also, of course, when we were pulling up here, you know, when we read something on the news, there's a distance to it. That's just a natural human reality. But as we find ourselves close to it, because this is our home in Houston, and also when we find ourselves, you know, driving closer and closer to this location, we realize that these were individual human beings with families, and the tragedy, as it hits close to the hearts of the people here, it takes on a different feeling. So there's a reality in proximity. There's something when we see, you know, people losing their lives across the world, we sympathize, but it has one effect. But when it happens in your city, and also when you see it happening in this area, then it does break the heart in a different way.
Stick with me, because I definitely want your perspective in 1 second. But as Rizvan and I are talking, again, we're along Highway 6, Mia and Ron, where authorities are potentially either waiting to serve or serve a federal warrant on a property that may have explosives. This property that may be linked to the shooting at Santa Fe High School. And I want to, you know, you talk about having distance, right? We see this on the news. We feel like it's not happening legitimately in our backyard. You drove in from the Spring area from North Houston, and you're bobbing and weaving through these streets. And as you all are driving through this small community, seeing these homes, what are you thinking?
It is a bit surreal, and I feel a little bit guilty in the fact that this is a reality that people in different parts of the world have to live with on a daily basis. And these things don't happen on their own. You know, society does not devolve into these types of terrorist attacks and violence on its own. It's because we as a community perhaps start to neglect the cohesion and the love that we need to have for each other. So there are other places in the world where their governments don't have stability. In America, by the grace of God, we have a great stability. And so the only thing holding us back from having a peaceful society is the mutual love that we have for each other. And so coming and going through these streets and seeing that in an ordinary community something like this can happen, you know, we just have to give this level of message of love for all and hatred for none to each and every person in the community, so that, you know, there's that fear is taken away and that love is out there.
And you all were talking to me about how just this week you all started this holy segment of prayer, Ramadan, where you all not only fast, but your minds are focused on love and prayer and community and unity. At this point, knowing this is not the first school shooting that we have reported on, read about, covered in 2018, what does a prayer sound like today?
So, you know, thoughts and prayers, it's something that we hear a lot of all the time. And we are actually holding an interfaith event tomorrow at our mosque. But the real objective is not just thoughts and prayers, because prayer does not do anything unless there's action to go along with it. And so what we want to do when we see people hurting in society and people actually using a tragedy like this to tear each other apart more, to score political points, to get some selfish end out of it, we want people to come together who disagree with each other and break bread. You know, this is the month of Ramadan, we're fasting, and we want to share our dinner with our neighbors, with people who may even dislike us, so that then, you know, there's an understanding and there's a relationship there, which is a silver lining that can come out of any tragedy.
What do you say to the people of Santa Fe? You're coming in from out of town, from North Houston. You did not have to deal with this today in your neighborhood, but in a way you did, because we're all bound. We're all Houston strong. What do you say to the folks here in Galveston County?
It's difficult to say anything. I think the important thing is perhaps to listen, because what they're going through and their experience, you know, maybe they need to be able to express what's in their hearts themselves, and that can be the source of the greatest comfort. And maybe that can be the greatest expression of love, to give them an opportunity to speak and just give a shoulder and to cry on and an ear to listen.
There you go. Houston strong, neighbors helping neighbors. And, you know, as we continue to keep watch on this house, just a nice little glimpse of the community coming together and already living that hashtag we're seeing on social media, standing for Santa Fe. Ron and Mia, back to you guys.
Yeah, that community is going to need all the support they can get from the greater community. Melissa Correa, thanks so much.
All right, we have Brett Buffington live now at the Galveston County Jail. We understand the suspect is there now.
He has been locked up here, Ron. He is in the jail in Galveston County. Of course, he's facing that capital murder charge and a charge for assault on a peace officer. I can tell you more about that house that Melissa is standing at. It is one of 2 houses there in the Santa Fe area in Galveston County where investigators have federal search warrants this afternoon. They also have a search warrant for a car, and we understand inside that car they already know that there is an explosive device. We learned that from the governor just a little bit ago. We learned a little bit more about that rampage in Santa Fe this morning as well, including that Demetrius Pagorchis, that 17-year-old, had a shotgun and a .38 revolver when he went into the school this morning during that shooting. Of course, the governor said that in a lot of cases like this, there are certain red flags. He said in this one specifically, though, unlike what we saw in Parkland, Florida, there weren't red flags. This guy was not on the radar of any law enforcement in the area. In fact, the governor said that essentially he had no criminal history. He didn't go into a lot of detail about it. He did say that this is an investigation that will take some time, and in the coming days, they will go back and begin to learn much more about this person. He did have a diary, we learned from the governor, and in that diary, we learned that this 17-year-old planned to commit suicide at the end of this attack. The governor called this Pagorchis a coward, saying that law enforcement got to him and he gave up. Of course, we'll be here in Galveston continuing to learn more about this accused shooter. He is again here in jail. We are waiting on the affidavit that will list what his charges are and how he was charged with them. Of course, that'll give us a lot more detail when that affidavit comes out. Of course, Pagorchis will also have a first appearance hearing. We'll be here for that.
All right, thank you so much. Brett Buffington live at the Galveston County Jail where the suspect is tonight.
Yeah, 17-year-old Demetrius Pagorchis, a student at Santa Fe High School, one time a member of the freshman football team there, no longer playing, obviously, but no red flags, as Brett mentioned. However, from just looking at his social media accounts, both Facebook and Instagram, we saw a young man fascinated by guns and violence. Several pictures of different weapons that we were able to look at before Facebook took down, of course, his account. Instagram, not exactly sure about the status of it, but just looking at some of his posts as recent as April 30th, we can see that this young man had an interest in violence.
Yeah, and we saw the T-shirt that said "Born to Kill," and there was a long military jacket with a Nazi emblem or some kind of Nazi patch or medal on it. But that's it in terms of red flags.
Yeah, they hadn't heard anything from anyone else,
and
no reports of anything.
Those are the kind of red flags you see after the fact.
Right, right. That's the thing. After it's happened, we are now just hours, at least 8 hours away from the start of all of this nightmare for the community of Santa Fe, Texas, after losing 10 of their own at the high school there in a shooting shortly after school started this morning. Shots were fired, students ran from the school, were evacuated. We know 10 were killed, 10 injured. Some of those injured being treated this afternoon, both at UTMB Hospital and Clear Lake Regional Hospital as well. Among those being treated is a man being called a hero already. That is Officer Barnes, John Barnes, a retired HPD officer now working for Santa Fe ISD, who we're told engaged with the shooter.
Yeah, 49-year-old, and his vital signs are stable, so things are looking better for him. You know, I'm not a doctor, obviously, but I think if you've read between the lines of what the doctors were saying, the vital signs have stabilized with him. They had secured the blood vessel that was the issue, and now is a matter of repairing the bones in the elbow when he took the gunshot wound to the elbow. But he's being called a hero by people, as well as the other ISD officer with Santa Fe, who, according to the colonel with the DPS, did the right thing by entering the school and confronting the shooter.
That could have made all the difference, that DPS colonel was saying earlier at a news briefing along with Governor Greg Abbott, who we heard from. We also know that the chief for Santa Fe ISD, as soon as this came across on the scanners, headed for Santa Fe High School as well and was able to pull that injured officer away from danger. So, you know, some very brave men in uniform there.
As bad as it was, it could have been much worse. We also, as you see the information there, we're told that in addition to the weapons were a shotgun and a .38 caliber revolver, which, according to authorities, were registered to the suspect's father. How his son got those weapons, still not clear, whether his father even knew he had the weapons. And then there were the explosive devices, including a CO2 device and a Molotov cocktail. They have warrants to search the house, at least 2 homes, and the car.
Yes, and our David Gonzalez is live in the neighborhood of the suspected shooter. Let's drop in and check with him now. David?
Yeah, Mia and Ron, things sort of at a standstill the last time you guys checked in with me here at County Road 136A. And this is where the suspect is believed to have lived or lives right now with his family. We talked to some neighbors out here earlier today, and they say that they do recognize the suspect. They recognize his name. They say that he actually grew up in this neighborhood along with their kids, and they say that they would see him around family events and celebrations like Easter, Halloween, and around Christmas time as well. They said that they haven't really seen him recently, but they do recognize his name and his face when his mugshot did come out. And all they could say is that this finally hit too close to home. As far as Santa Fe High School, it's about 3.3 miles away from our location right now, and neighbors say here students here in this area and kids do not go to school in Santa Fe. They actually go to Alvin and Alvin ISD, but they say that this finally hit too close to home as soon as information started pouring in that the suspect lived in their neighborhood. As far as this neighborhood right now, things are fairly quiet right now. Earlier today, we did see a lot of authorities show up to the scene. We're talking about ATF, DEA, FBI, and as well as local authorities like the Brazoria County Sheriff's Office, and they took over the street and basically got ready like they were going to go to war. They put on tactical gear, they put on helmets, they armed themselves with long rifles. We also saw a battering ram. Earlier today, we've heard about a lot of information regarding accessing the home. We do not know if they've been able to make their way into that home, but as of right now, things are fairly quiet out here as we continue to monitor the situation here at the suspect's home off of County Road 136A. Right now, let's send it over now to Senator John Cornyn, who's
social media posting that when you look back on it, you see signs that may have alerted people that this young man was suffering from some sort of mental health crisis and planned to do something like this. Obviously, after the Parkland shooting at the high school there, we all became aware that we needed to do more than just address mental health issues, but we needed to do that. We needed better collaboration between local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies. We needed to figure out a way to mine information from social media postings where individuals literally advertise their intention to do something like this. But one of the things I talked to Governor Abbott about is we also appropriated a significant amount of money to help schools harden themselves as a target, because these shooters frequently look for opportunities, and those opportunities are the soft targets where they know people will be unlikely to be able to return fire and to stop them. Thank goodness, though, Santa Fe Independent School District had law enforcement officials on the site, or this could have been even worse. And so we thank all of the law enforcement officers and first responders who came to the aid here. This obviously is still evolving, but we do know that there were also some explosive devices located both in the shooter's car and at the school, and I know they're just finishing up the process of going through the school to make sure there are no unidentified explosive devices still there. But obviously this young man planned on doing this for some time. He prepared for it. He advertised his intentions, but somehow slipped through the cracks. About 16 to 18 months ago, we also passed legislation called the Mental Health and Safe Communities Act, which is designed to help teachers and school counselors and parents communicate more about problematic students students who are sending off all the wrong signals, but nothing ever seems to quite happen. Again, we don't know exactly what the whole story is for this young man, but we do know this is a terrible tragedy, and we're all heartbroken at the result. But we need to continue to do everything we can to figure out how to stop these terrible events. This young man was 17 years old. He could not go in and legally purchase a firearm, yet he was able to acquire one, apparently, of his father's shotguns and semi-automatic pistol. That's another issue we need to look at, whether parents and others should have a legal obligation to secure these firearms from people like their children who are going through some sort of crisis. So with that, I'd be happy to answer a few questions.
Senator, I understand you just spoke with some of the families. Would you mind telling me what that was like and what they're going through right now?
Actually, I did not talk to the family yet. I did talk to the FBI special agent in charge, and it expressed my gratitude for the federal agents who are here locally. There also are agents from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Like the bombings in Austin, where we had 500 federal agents on the ground, there's a significant federal law enforcement presence here. And obviously, everybody from the President to Secretary of Education DeVos is watching what's going on here and offering not just their prayers and sympathy, but asking what can we do to help.
Senator, how big of a role did the school resource officer, the armed officer, how big of a role did they play in all this not being worse than what it was?
Well, sometimes it takes a good guy with a gun to stop a bad guy with a gun, and that's why it's important to have armed law enforcement officers present. I know we all would wish for a bygone era when that may not have been necessary, but in these days and times, I think it's only prudent to have armed law enforcement officers present to come to the aid of innocent victims of gun violence. And you know, that's another conversation we're going to have to continue to have, what that ought to look like, whether it's a single officer who obviously can't be everywhere all the time, or something more than that.
What kind of shotgun was it, Senator?
I don't know what kind of shotgun it was. There was some suggestion it was some sort of the barrel had been sawed off. To some point, we don't yet know if it was an illegal shotgun, which I believe is under 18 inches, or not. But obviously, it's capable of a lot of devastation.
Was there only one firearm involved?
Pardon me?
Was there only one firearm involved?
I'm told there was a semi-automatic pistol and a shotgun. Those are the two weapons involved, is what I'm told. Again, I'm only telling you what I have heard reported. Obviously, the investigation continues. In addition, as I mentioned, there were apparently some pipe bombs and also some pressure cooker type bombs like those that were used in the Boston Marathon tragedy a few years ago. I don't know if I'm told that there was perhaps the barrel was reduced in size. We don't yet know whether it was illegal, because if as long as it's 18 inches or longer than 18 inches, it wouldn't be illegal. It's my understanding. If it's shorter, it would be. So I don't know the answer to that for sure.
Senator, you said that perhaps we should explore legislatively whether parents should be required to keep their guns under lock and key. Do you think that should be the case? What's your opinion on it?
I think it's only prudent. I think it's that would be an exercise of good judgment, and I think it's an open issue whether we ought to require parents to, from a legal standpoint, in the absence of good judgment.
Federal or local?
I think both of those we need to look at it at both levels.
Senator, you had mentioned that the firearms were taken from the suspect's father. Is there any indication that the suspect's father was aware that the son, in fact, had taken those firearms?
I'm not aware of the answer to that. I'm sure you'll get an answer from some of the law enforcement officials at some point when they get farther along in their investigation.
Senator, when Governor Abbott calls for a roundtable, what are you hoping to come out of that, especially since so many people call for gun control after things like this?
Well, we're all searching for what we can do that will make a difference and save lives. Unfortunately, as you know, gun rights, gun safety is a politically volatile topic, but in Washington, D.C., often people want to offer symbolic gestures, but that don't really save lives. For example, after the Sutherland Springs shooting, we were able to pass a bill that would improve the background check system that prevents people who cannot legally purchase or possess a firearm from acquiring them. I'm glad we were able to do that with broad bipartisan support, and I believe that that will save lives. But will it save lives in every potential scenario? Probably not, because you have, for example, children taking their parents' guns, well, much as what happened at Sandy Hook when Adam Lanza took his mother's guns and killed her with those guns before he murdered the innocent children at the elementary school.
Senator, do you plan on having a single roundtable talk at the federal level? Who do you think will be on that roundtable?
I don't plan on holding any roundtables. I think we have a good idea about the range of things that we need to do. I think what we need is a good investigation from law enforcement that shows us where the gaps are and what gaps we need to fill. We know from what happened at Parkland High School in Florida that there was a catastrophic failure across the board, from local to state to federal law enforcement, from mental health officials, from families, from the school not preparing and hardening themselves as a target. And really what happened, the tragedy that happened there was a result of all of the failures. So if we can identify with specificity where we can fill the gap and make a difference that will save lives, that's where I would concentrate our efforts.
The students from Parkland High School started their own movement. The students at this high school may now join it and march to Washington and demand for greater gun control. What would you say to them?
Again, I'm interested in doing things that will solve problems rather than just pure symbolism. Obviously, they have a right to advocate for anything that they wish, but we live under a constitution that guarantees the right to keep and bear arms for law-abiding citizens, and I support that right. But we don't believe that people who are convicted felons, people who have been adjudicated mentally ill, people who are convicted wife beaters, people who are convicted or dishonorably discharged from the military, all of those are disqualifying events under the current law, and you should not legally be able to get or keep or acquire a firearm under those circumstances. So I think we first need to focus on enforcing the laws that are on the books and making sure they work appropriately, like the background check system. And if there are other gaps we need to fill, other discussions we need to have which will actually save lives, I'm all in.
Senator, you said that there were two firearms involved. Were those both carried by the same person or one person?
I'm unaware of any report of a second shooter, but again, I'm not the best source for that. I'd look to law enforcement to give you the authoritative answer to that. That's my understanding. Thank you.
All right, we've been listening to Senator John Cornyn speaking about the ongoing investigation and the deadly shooting at Santa Fe High School. The senator first and foremost pointing out that the suspected shooter advertised his intentions, but somehow slipped through the cracks here. And it's because of this, he's saying that we have to continue to do everything we can do to stop these kinds of events from happening in our communities.
Santa Fe ISD had shot fired.
Next thing you know, we hear the booms and everybody just starts running. Everybody yelling, run, go, as fast as you can.
It didn't sound like a, like a little gun. It sounded like a pretty big gun.
When I pulled up to the school, it was one of the saddest things I've ever seen. Parents everywhere, kids everywhere.
It's been happening everywhere. I've always kind of felt like eventually it was going to happen here too.
You have been watching continuous coverage of the deadly shooting at Santa Fe High School. This is KHOU 11 News at 4. I'm Mia Gradney, Rekha Muniraj on this very difficult day for our greater Houston community.
We have been tracking this since about 7:30 this morning. It has been a long day for parents and students and really everyone in our community. But as the information has come through, we are making taking great efforts to make sure you are getting the information that is true and verified. And with more on that, let's go to Tiffany Craig. Hey, Tiff.
Hi, guys. What we have done here is we have
split up this board. We're going to tell you what we have verified, things that we're not quite sure about, and then things that are just flat false. We'll get started with some of the biggest things here. The suspect in this case has been charged with aggravated assault of a police officer and capital murder. That came just a couple of hours ago. So again, that is verified information. Also, 10 killed, 9 students, 1 teacher, 10 wounded. Included in that is a police officer with Santa Fe ISD. Now, we're going to take you to this middle section. This is information we've been hearing all day, but we haven't been able to confirm it with officials as of yet. The report is that a teacher pulled a fire alarm. An interview this morning with a student, they mentioned that they saw their teacher pull the alarm to alert the rest of the school because the art classroom is slightly separated from the rest of the school, and that was their way to let everybody know. We haven't been able to confirm that with the school yet, so that's why the report was that the art class itself was targeted. We don't know that for sure. We've been hearing that quite a bit today, but again, it's in this column right here versus over here in our verified section because we're just not sure. Over here at the end, a couple of things, and these have been mentioned on social media all day long, and they're false. 18 school shootings in 2018. That information has been spreading around like wildfire everywhere. That number 18 is a big number. It's a scary number. But included in that 18 are smaller type things like suicides and even incidents and shootings that have happened around schools. So you can't really say there were 18 school shootings in 2018 because that would suggest that it's 18 of what we've been watching today, and that's just not the case. And finally, one more thing that comes up that people are very interested in is what type of weapon did this suspect use? And what we do know as false is that an AR-15 was not used. We're going to continue to update this, but again, this section is false. This in the middle, it's stuff we've heard all day, but we're just not 100% sure about. And all of this information here is what we have verified. And guys, we are working on this hour by hour. Things are changing. We'll keep updating this and we'll bring it to you when we get it.
Yeah, Tiffany, and we know that you and the investigative team have been sifting through tweets and messages posted on Facebook and other social media sites, making sure you are actually giving us facts and real information. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Arlen Cannon is staged and set up just outside Santa Fe High School. He's been there for much of this afternoon. And Lynn, we understand that you hope to be joined by Governor Greg Abbott.
Actually, we have the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, with me right now. Mr. Patrick, thank you for joining us. I know you sat in on the briefing this afternoon along with the governor and I believe Senator Cruz.
Yes.
Your reflection on the information that you heard today.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, this school had received a safety award. They had one of 186 out of over 1,000 school districts. They were doing the best that they could do. They had taken the training. They had 2 armed officers at the school and a roving officer, which was the chief today, who was there in minutes. In fact, he's the one who pulled the one officer out of after he'd been shot, pulled him back to an area of safety.
We saw the breakdown. It was 8 minutes. A
there.
gang of officers were in.
And so this is a terrible tragedy for these families and these students and the teacher who was killed today. These officers probably saved countless other lives. What we know at this point is not a lot about this young man. And you know, so often in all of these stories, too many people try to have too many answers too quickly and then it changes. So I'm not going to try and do that. But I will tell you that everything we know as of this moment, there were no big red flags.
The governor said no red flags, and if they were almost imperceptible.
Yeah, imperceptible. He was not anyone that was bullied that anyone knows of. You know, I know there's a picture of his shirt, "Born to Kill," that was on the internet, but there was
fascination
nothing.
with weapons,
yeah, fascination. But look, you know, lots of kids in Texas have guns. That's not unusual. But there are a couple of lessons here, and I talked about these today in the press conference. One is, first of all, to all of our parents out there who legally own guns, lock them up. Even if you don't legally own them, lock them up. Get a gun safe. We don't know, but we speculate this time that he took the guns from his parents, but we don't know that for sure.
Do we know if investigators have talked to the parents?
I know that's all been going on throughout the day or going to happen as we speak or early this evening. So number one, make sure
no kid, no grandkid, no one who breaks into your home can get your weapons. That's just common sense. Number two is, I think we have to look at hardening the targets, hardening our schools. And by that I mean we have over 8,000 different campuses in Texas. You know, we're a big school system, 6 million kids. We can't, and every school has multiple entrances. Well, if every school had 4 entrances and you try to have an officer there at every entrance, it's 32,000 officers.
Right.
That's not going to happen. But should we redesign all of our new schools and then repurpose all of our old schools so there's one exit in, there's one exit out. One
so
entrance,
that there's
one
only
exit.
one way in so that you can protect that one entrance.
Then you can protect that. Because from what we've been told, again, all of this could change later today, but from what we've been told, he apparently had a trench coat on. You know, it's 90 degrees out here today, but no one noticed it because he walked in to where he fired his weapon was right near the door, so he walked in one of the entrances. This was a building kind of back from the main area.
So it was another entrance.
It was another entrance. And so, you know, my thinking is if you have one entrance, and maybe we have to stagger our kids coming to school because this school has 1,400 kids. You can't have all 1,400 waiting in a line, but we have to think out of the box. So how do we better protect our schools, better protect our kids? Because we could have someone eyes on the kids coming in. We do in office buildings, we do in courthouses, we do at airports. I mean, we could do that. And so that's one of the things, you know, Governor Abbott's going to have roundtables that we're going to, with everyone involved from the community on all sides of this issue.
And so talking about that, you know, I want to be clear about something. The governor said, look, it is time to do more than prayer. Prayer is good, but he said it's time to, along with prayer, take action. Now, you just mentioned a couple of things. What else can be done as it relates to gun laws, et cetera? I know people support the Second Amendment, especially in Texas, but how do you make that balance? The governor seemed to indicate you could do both.
Well, currently we fund a school safety program for almost $2 million in San Marcos. And so that's one of the things that we have done.
What does that mean?
That means like this school, they can look. A lot of schools don't know what the protocol be of how to protect your students or your teachers, so they can go through this safety program to help make their schools safer. So they can do that. Secondly, we do have teachers in Texas. It's up to the school districts if they want to arm their teachers or not. We have a lot of schools in rural Texas where law enforcement is maybe a 20-minute ride away.
And you're in favor of that, rural or otherwise?
Yeah, if the parents and the school boards want to do it, I think that's a local decision. Then it's up to that. In Texas, it's up to the school board, it's up to the parents, you know, obviously interacting with the school board and the principals and the superintendents. In this case, this school had two armed officers, as I said, at the campus. The second thing, again, we have to look at the design of school, the flow of people into the school. I mean, maybe if there had been one entrance, someone would have noticed he had a trench coat on a 90-degree day.
An officer may have noticed.
Trained officer looking for that.
Is there a timetable, Lieutenant Governor, for when, not so much the discussions, but whatever you come up with will be implemented?
Well, we're going to start discussions next week, but these discussions are ongoing. We have an interim charge right now for school safety that we put out months ago. And this is a continuing conversation. When I was a senator, ongoing to being lieutenant governor, we'll be in session in January. And I think that whatever the decisions are made out of these roundtable meetings will be part of what I would intend to be Senate Bill 1. Senate Bill 1 signifies the most important this issue is, and I'm sure it'll be an emergency item. I don't want to speak for the governor, but on the call so we can pass this out quickly, whatever this is. But we want people with diverse opinions. Families have been impacted, not just in schools, but like from Sutherland Springs. We need to look at all the ways that we can do our best to limit the possibilities. Can you ever bring it to it's never ever going to happen?
Not possible.
Not possible. You know, we have a lot of laws on the books that are broken every day. But can we go to the next step? What do we learn from this? Now,
should you hire more officers? I know it's not plausible to cover every entrance.
Right.
They had 2 officers here, 1,400 students.
Right.
Maybe you decide a certain number of students should get so many officers.
Well, that will come out of all of these discussions and meetings, because we need the educators to be a part of this. Very, very important. Like, there's some teachers that want to be armed and their schools don't let them. Other teachers don't want to be armed even if the schools do. So we need everybody in this discussion. You know, this young man today decided at the last moment not to commit suicide because he told the investigators that he was going to kill himself or let the police shoot him, and at the last minute he changed his mind. And what that allows us to do is for deep questioning of the 17-year-old to really find out the motive, to find out where he got the guns. You know, very many of these cases we don't have that opportunity. So there's a lot of information we need, and our law enforcement will get those answers. And
What do
we'll
you
learn from
say?
that.
What do you say, Lieutenant Governor? You're a former broadcaster. You've been in politics a long time. You've been on the radio. To the parents today who lost their children.
Well, you know, since last August in the hurricane, Lynn, this state has, it's been a long 9 months. The largest natural disaster in history, the largest church shooting in history, and now this. We lost 14 officers in the line of duty in the last 18 months doing their job. We were at a funeral this week in Wise County for an officer who was killed in an accident in the line of duty. You know, my pastor, Dr. Young at Second Baptist, always says, just be there so they know that you care, and put your arm around them. And God will give you the right words at the right time. So what I say to all the families, and all these, look, all these students who are home safely today with their parents, they are shaken as well. How will they feel when they come back to the school? There's a lot that's going to have to happen, but for these families, we know that all Texas is behind them.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in the power of prayer, but this is a very, very difficult day. You know, in Sutherland Springs, I'll just say this, one, I think it was a great-grandfather who lost 8 members of his family, said, it's not for us to question God, but to trust God. As a Christian, I trust God. I don't understand everything. And what I've seen through the storm, through the Sutherland shooting, through all these tragedies, the police officer funerals that I go to, it's their faith that they stand on, the rock of hope and the promise of the Bible and of Jesus that gets them through these times. And these people will be needing us as a community, us as a state, us as a country, but they'll be standing on the rock of their faith.
Will you or the governor or anyone else be attending any of the vigils tonight, or have you spoken to any of the family members today?
We are hoping to shortly, and you know, I just don't know what the schedule is. Whatever is going to happen, we will be there, as we have been. As I said, Governor Abbott and I have been at a lot of funerals, and I always see the great spirit of Texas and the great faith that they have, and the family comes together and their friends, and somehow they get through it. You know, I told you Monday I was in Wise County. An officer up there was killed. He left 8 children behind.
My goodness.
And so tragedy happens in our lives, and it's a terrible thing, and we have to be there to support our friends and family.
Lieutenant Governor, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
We wish you well as you go forward, as you grapple with the decisions you're going to have to make over the coming weeks and months.
Well, we're gonna take this head on. We can't accept this in our country. We can't accept this in our state. And you know, I want to talk about one of the issues I want to talk about are violent video games. You know, then when you were growing up and I was growing up, we were not mesmerized by watching games.
Do you think that that's part of the problem in some cases?
I think it has to be part of the problem where you know, the violent game industry has more revenue than movies and music combined. And when you are able to kill people wantonly on a game, and then they resurrect their lives, or they kill you and you can come back to life, you know, does anyone play that out? I don't know, but I want those answers. And that industry has never really been put to the test. I look for common denominators. What has changed things?
So let me go back to something. So you talk about more officers and schedules, telling parents to lock your guns. What do we need? Tougher gun laws?
Well, today was a shotgun.
Background checks, etc.
Yeah, I think everybody wants the best background checks we can get.
Closing loopholes.
Yeah, everybody wants to address all those issues. Those are federal issues, not state issues.
But what do you think about that?
Well, we want the best background checks. I'm a gun owner. I'm a member of the NRA. We're responsible people. Gun owners are responsible people. But today, for example, you know, these were assault weapons. A so-called assault weapon, AR-15. Well, today was a shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
So is there going to be a course to ban all shotguns? He had a pistol, a .38 revolver. And then if it's not that, it could be a long knife. It could be a sword. So
we could potentially see
I think there'll be
something on the state level, or you think or you'll push to the national level?
More at the national, but we're going to do everything we can in the state. And you know, we have law-abiding citizens who are concealed carry people in the state. We have responsible gun owners in the state, but today we had a killer, and we need to see how he got his guns, where he got his guns, how he was able to get in that school, and so if we could have stopped him at all those steps, we wouldn't be here talking.
That's true.
Thank you,
Lieutenant Governor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. All right, Mia, back to you.
Arlen Cannon out there live at Santa Fe High School, the scene of today's deadly shooting. 10 killed, 10 others injured. The investigation is very active at this time. We have team coverage this afternoon. It continues right after this.
Monday at 10. These moms are on a mission to find the best travel deals around.
What's the cheapest flight you found?
Kenya. It's $179 round trip.
And they're taking their kids too.
Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Thailand.
How you can find the cheapest flights.
Texas to North Carolina, $39 one way.
And low price lodging.
I'm not going to pay usually for hotels unless it's free.
Their secrets to savings.
Don't have to be rich to do it at all.
Monday on KHOU 11 News at 10.
This portion of the news brought to you by Ashley Home Store. This is home.
Remember your first bike? No, your first real bike. So can you imagine the feeling you'll get from your first real truck? The GMC Sierra. Just announced $1,500 Memorial Day purchase cash on specially equipped Sierra SLT Crew Cab models, or get nearly $9,800 total value on a specially equipped Sierra Denali.
1 in 5 Houstonians are affected by mental illness, spanning all cultures, ages, and income levels. These illnesses are treatable. Visit khou.com/BeMindful to learn more.
Presented by the Menninger Clinic.
How many cool days does it have left? How many washes before your systems and appliances die? Be sure your budget's protected with an American Home Shield home warranty. We cover major components of essential home systems and appliances. Limitations and exclusions apply. All home systems and appliances eventually die. Don't let them make a mess of your budget. For free information, call 1-800-504-9645. Be sure with the Shield. American Home Shield.
Learning you have a condition. Moving to a new city. Caring for your parents. These are moments when people realize that where you get your medicine matters.
And they look to us, CVS Pharmacy,
for advice and ways to save money.
Plus, get up to $50 extra each year just for filling prescriptions.
Switching is easy.
Join us
at CVS Pharmacy, including the ones at Target.
The all-new Ram 1500 is a truck that keeps its word, delivering 2,300 pounds of max payload, 12,750 pounds of towing, and with a proven 5.7-liter Hemi V8, it's the most capable Ram 1500 ever, and why more people are switching to Ram than ever before.
Now get an average $13,500 in total values on the 2018 Ram 1500, and Texas residents get these additional offers.
What is love? 2 hearts, 1 soul. It's the journey and the destination. It's vows made and promises kept. Feed your hunger, quench your thirst, live your dreams. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
Back now with our continuing coverage of the deadly shooting at Santa Fe High School and the ongoing investigation.
Yeah, about an hour ago, as we were mentioning, the superintendent of Santa Fe ISD, Dr. Lee Wall, had released a statement. She said this will be the first of many statements she makes talking about this morning's tragedy and the outpouring of support. She's pledging to provide the resources for students and staff who will need these on a long road to recovery. And with that, we're going to go live to the school administration building. That is where Lauren Tallarico is live. And Lauren, I hear that you're running into some students there.
Yeah, Reka, we are. And, you know, it has been almost 9 hours since the shooting this morning, and we are still hearing from students who are looking for a loved one 9 hours later. I spoke to a junior at the high school named Brandon Austin, and he's grappling right now with not only what he went through this morning, but also that he is still looking for his best friend. He says nobody has heard from him. He believes he was in that area of the school this morning. Go ahead and take a listen to what he had to say.
Then I see Mr. Vaughn, as she said earlier, like run hysterically and screaming, just run. So at that point, you have like 500 students just running and off to get as far as possible. It was just, it felt like a movie. It wasn't even real. It was crazy.
No, well, when I saw him, I went up to him and I grabbed him and hugged him and put him in my car. And oh my gosh, I'm just glad he is okay.
I'm hoping my friend's okay. That's why I'm out here. My friends are here somewhere. I'm trying to find them. I really hope he's okay. But everyone's just assuming he's gone, and I really hope that's not the case.
We hope so too. You know, something else that students are having to deal with, the fact that someone they knew was capable of doing something this heinous. Now, authorities have identified the suspect as Demetrius Bogorges, as we've been telling you. Brandon says he knew him. Listen to what he had to say about his relationship with the suspect.
I never thought he would amount to something this tragic, and but he stuck to himself. He had a few friends, but never really talked to many people. You know, I maybe seen him get bullied a few times, but nothing too serious. So for him to do something this catastrophic, it's crazy.
Now, there are several vigils planned for this afternoon and evening. Of course, we will be there. And I also want to mention that driving here into Santa Fe, you see a lot of flags already at half-staff. Businesses have changed their signs, a lot of them saying, please pray for Santa Fe, things like that. And I know that this community is certainly going to need those prayers for a long time to come. Reka, Mia?
Yeah, Lauren, you could certainly feel for that student and what he went through this morning. Also the relief on that mother's face. I'm sure that you could feel that as well. Thank you so much, Lauren Tellerico.
Yeah, as a parent, that will be the toughest call you ever get. There is a shooting at your child's school. Yeah. Mom, dad, rush here. Scary stuff. Our coverage will continue right after this break. More on the deadly school shooting at Santa Fe High School right after this.
Bringing you the news that matters every single morning. That's how I stand for Houston.
So you guys have recently started dating? Yes. Cool. I want to show you guys 3 Chevy SUVs. The first one is called the Trax. Great for when you move in together. And this is the Chevy Equinox. Perfect for when you two have your first kid.
Give me some time.
Okay. This is the Traverse for when you have your 5 kids, 2 dogs, and 1 cat.
Whoa. It's the Chevy Memorial Day sales event. Get $3,500 total cash allowance on all Trax LT models. Plus, current competitive owners and lessees get an additional $2,000 competitive cash allowance when you purchase.
Say hello to new low prices and weekly sale prices too, like delicious pork spare ribs for just 99 cents a pound.
Now through Memorial Day, discover great styles for your home from the Cindy Crawford Home Collection. Plus, now you can finance interest-free for 60 months until June 2023, 5 years from now. There's no interest adding up, no interest period for 60 months until June 2023. So get the perfect furniture for your home, now through Memorial Day from Cindy Crawford Home and Rooms to Go.
When disaster strikes, when duty calls, and when others are in need, they go first. Now it's time to put them first. Ford thanks those who go further for all of us. Now first responders, all military personnel, veterans, and retirees can get $1,000 appreciation cash on top of current offers. All from Ford, America's best-selling brand and the best in Texas. Visit FordSalutesThoseWhoServe.com to learn more.
And welcome back to our continuous coverage of the shooting at Santa Fe High School that happened several hours ago.
Yeah, our Lynn Cannon is just outside Santa Fe High School. He's been there this afternoon. Lynn, you were there when Governor Greg Abbott spoke in detail about today's shooting, offering new information and also what he thinks needs to be done.
Yeah, it was really compelling to hear the governor this afternoon, Mia and Reka, talking about first and foremost, getting as much evidence to find out what happened here. We do have some details. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Second, providing support for the survivors, the victims' families. Clearly, it is the worst day of their lives and so tragic. And so he wants to provide support for them as well as for the entire school community here down in Santa Fe. And then the governor said, it is time to do more than just pray. We need to take action. This is what he has in mind. Take a listen.
We want to hear from everybody.